Okay. Hi, everybody. This is Gary. Gary Wilson. I'm here with Brenda Griffin, who's a rock star agent down in Virginia Beach, Virginia. And I wanted to interview Brenda, not just because I know her personally, but because I know of her track record when it comes to real estate, and I know specifically work with investors. So hi, Brenda. How you doing?
Hi, Gary. I'm doing great. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing great. Welcome back from your vacation in New Hampshire. I'm sure you had an awesome time, and yeah, welcome back to the beach. And I'm sure when you came back, you had emails and phone calls up to your eyeballs, huh?
Absolutely. Trying to play catch up.
Yeah. Well, what I want to do, Brenda, is I like to use these interviews to send out to other students and other people who've been through the 2-hour free class, just to give them more perspective on what it's like working with investors and, how you actually do it, how you're successful, what things you're doing, what you're not doing, what you've learned, to really help them, because a lot of them are new, not just new to working with investors. Most of them are, in fact, but a lot of them are actually new to the business. And they're being taught all the traditional stuff, because I know, because I went through it and you went too. We're all taught things like Ignite and Bold and all the other Buffini stuff, but it all works. But it all works with owner occupants. And the fact is investors are different. You have to, if you learn and use a different tactic with investors the right way, often it'll turn into a really respectful and profitable relationship that pays you a lot more over time. And I mean, let's just start off with that, with your experience. Give us a little bit of background, Brenda, if you don't mind, like where you came from, how you got started, and I'm sure it was traditional real estate, and then how you got into working with investors and what you discovered, and why you're still doing it and why you like it so much.
Okay. But I was licensed since 2003, and I kind of fell into it with a company I was working for, William E. Wood. They're here in the Hampton Roads area, and they had a internet lead department, so they would get leads and so forth, and then they would hand them over to a couple of agents, and I actually had a good rapport, so that's how I fell into that. And it ended up turning into where banks, pre-foreclosures, needed some BPOs done, which are called broker price opinions. So I started doing that for them and got a couple of listings, and through those listings, I kind of got investors pretty much falling into my lap. I think for me, being determined and educated in what you do is definitely a must. I am constantly, every single day, running around looking at foreclosures, short sales, doing the legwork before I even meet up with my investors, but I guess I'm getting off track here. So anyways, I started with one investor pretty much the first year that I got into real estate, and then just word of mouth, truly, is how it's happened now. I have 5 full-time investors, and then I have probably about 5 or 6 other investors that probably flip 1 or 2 a year. When I say full-time investors, I mean 10 or more properties a year. Basically, I find them for them and give them the value of what it needs, what the cost of the property should be. And with the years of experience that I've had, I pretty much can walk into a property and know, how much the value of each window costs to replace it, a roof, how many layers of shingles are on the roof. So it's, I think for me, just years and years of experience, knowing what a property is going to take to flip. So when I do meet my investor over at the property, we already have an idea of what it's going to take. And then writing the offer, and definitely when I come in and tell them what I think the resale value is, I'm conservative. A lot of agents aren't. They'll go to the very high end of the market, and that doesn't do anybody any favors when, you've got a reduction of $10,000, $15,000 right off the bat. So for me, my investors have 100% trust in me and what I'm doing, and that's because of just constantly educating myself. I've taken plenty of classes, and also, Gary, I took your class. You know that. That helped me tremendously, finding value and also finding properties. And it's unbelievable. I feel very blessed that I'm in this position. You figure one transaction for one investor turns into 2, because not only am I selling it to them before they rehab it, but then I get the listing on the other end. So it's just, a typical 10 transactions a year turn into 20 for me for one investor. So it's a win-win as long as you're educated and know what you're doing and you can advise them, because this is pretty much what they do. This is their livelihood. And I think as a real estate agent out there, it should be your livelihood as well. It's not just about a quick sale. It's about a lifetime relationship with this individual investor.
Right.
And then, of course, I also do other, listing and sales with just generic sellers and buyers and things like that. But investors are definitely my forte.
Good. Well, if you want to ask you a couple of questions?
Sure.
Okay. So you hit on a couple of points here. One of the first things you hit on was that you really only had like 4 or 5 or 6 at a time that you're working with, and you might have, it sounded like maybe 10 others. But the reason that's important to me is, you know how we're all taught in traditional real estate, we need 200 people in our sphere to survive. And that's only true in the traditional model with owner-occupants. When it comes to investors, I never worked with more than 4 to 6 people at a time. That was it. Yeah. I didn't have hundreds of people. I didn't need to, because like you said,
Right.
you meet one investor, if he does 10 flips in a year, that's 20 sides right there. For one investor. And so the second point was, you mentioned that like word of mouth, like one guy would tell another guy, and that's something I really don't emphasize a lot when I teach people or when I do those free classes. But it's so important for them to understand is that I didn't spend a lot of money on marketing. I had a few basic marketing techniques. I used 16 techniques over time. 3 or 4 I did all the time. But the reality is I had like a 1-for-1 ratio. For every investor I ever got, I always got one more investor because they referred me to them.
Exactly.
And, yeah, and that doesn't happen with owner-occupants. It's like pulling teeth to get a referral. With these investors, though, you don't even have to ask. You just do a good job. As long as you do a good job, if you follow the rules of the game, and of course, I teach this stuff, and you know how to walk the talk, and you provide good service, you give them the tools, give them the calculators, give them the spreadsheets, they'll have no reason to go anywhere else. They won't even consider going anywhere else,
No, and they don't. And trust me, it's feast or famine in real estate. I've had many, many real estate agents in the past try to, quote unquote, scoop up my investors, and they just basically say, I am completely happy where I am, thanks, but no thanks. And it's loyalty is what it is.
Yes. That's a key point. That's the other thing is, I teach classes all the time. Next week I'll be in Virginia for a full week, and then New York after that for a full week. And it's always the same thing. People are coming from their traditional mindset, so their mind filter is like, hey, why don't they go anywhere else? And what if they say they're working with 4 or 5 other agents? And I always tell them, I say, well, that's because that's the way they've been conditioned, because we as an industry have allowed that to happen. We created that ourselves. But when you follow the format that you do, and I know when you and I first met, I never forget, I'm teaching this class, and you're in there shaking your head up and down, nodding and say, yep, I do that, yep, I do that, yep, I do that. Like here's another one, like scheduling. Like you schedule your time with your investors. It's not that you take away their freedom of choice. You just, instead of letting them dictate to you when you're going to do things, you tell them, hey, guys, here's my schedule for next week. Let me know which one of these works best.
Exactly, that's not typical with your normal buyers. You basically work on their schedule, but investors work on my schedule.
Exactly, and it's nothing. Like when you tell them your schedule, do you ever get pushback from them from your investors?
No, never. Nope, and pretty much what I do. Because the market is so competitive here in the Hampton Roads area, I literally devote probably 3 hours every morning into looking into new properties that have hit the market, and then I go out and physically look at every single one of them. And then the reason why I have so many investors, they're not all the same, thank God, because it would be very stressful, but they have different criteria, different locations, things like that. Then I will let them know, okay, you need to see this property today. And they basically make time, and that's what I do. And then 9 out of 10 times we're writing an offer right then and there. And honestly, 9 out of 10 times well, that's not true. Maybe 7 out of 10 offers I write, I get. And it's also too, just having the knowledge how to write the offer to be competitive is number one. And there's a lot of tricks to the trade, Gary, you know that. But just knowing what you're doing and educating yourself is the most important thing.
Yeah, my number is the same. It was about for think about the agents are trying to source the guys from the investor clubs, the no money down FISBO guys. I mean, the old saying is they write 100 offers, hoping one sticks. I mean, you and I never ever did that. We didn't have to.
No.
Is the way you're describing all this, it sounds like the majority of the investors you work with are flippers. Does that sound about right?
Yep, that is definitely correct. I do have a few that basically will pick up properties for their portfolio, but generally it's flipping. I'm sorry, Gary, I'm losing you. You're going in and out.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yep, there you are.
Okay, sorry about that. I started slouching down in my chair. I'm in the Outer Banks right now on the third floor deck of a beach house. And,
oh, rough life.
Yeah, where I'm at a family reunion with 25 people, and once you and I were done, I've got one more call, and then I'm gonna head back out to the beach and do some surfing. But in any case, so back to the call here. What's interesting, one of the things I like about you is you've definitely found your niche in flips. And I know for me, while I did work with people who flipped, and I did flips myself, predominantly most of what I did was the buy and hold, and represent people who also bought buy and hold. And the reason I'm making that distinction is when I'm teaching these classes in the market centers, typically people will come through, they'll see it, they understand, okay, I understand the concept, I want in the program, they go through the program, and they're trying to be all things to all people, like typical agents. They're still thinking broadcast campaigns, cast a wide net, and they'll do flippers, they'll do renters, or this and that. And I say, really, look, guys, there's zero laser beam focus on one thing, and that's all you'll need. You only do flips. I only did rentals, and each of us only had 4 to 6 guys at a time,
Right, and I think that's definitely what separates a lot of real estate agents apart, because you have to have a niche. You have to specialize in something which will, have you stand out from the other, 3,000-4,000 agents in your area. So if you're not educated and, you don't have a specialty, there's really nothing special about you.
Right. The people,
as far as real estate goes, that is.
Yeah. Well, they'll perceive you're the expert in business. If you think about it, Brenda, prior to a couple of years ago, I know for me, I did not perceive myself as being an expert. I knew what I knew, and thankfully what I knew was very valuable and was a great commodity to have. I want to go, what the reason I'm making that point is going back to something else you said about buying the properties. I really didn't do a lot of that myself. On the rentals, I never did an analysis. I let the buyers, my clients, do it. On the flips, I did get involved somewhat because flipping is it's like that the fence between the investor world and the owner-occupant world, because on the investor side, somebody's got to buy it and take the risk and remodel it and put it back on the market for resale. But when you do that, now you jump the fence in your owner-occupied market. So you as an agent, you do have to understand the owner-occupied market when it comes to pricing and marketing and psychology and all that.
Absolutely.
So I would, on the guys I work with who do flips, I did get involved more on that analysis because I knew the marketplace. I knew the right neighborhoods because I'd use my school report. You remember the school report? I think I showed you Market Center how to set up where you could see what's selling, what's active, what's sold, and within the different school districts. Because I didn't want my flipper going around flipping in some neighborhood in a school district where nobody wanted to buy a house,
Absolutely.
I wanted him to sell that house, so I can get a commission. But in any case, that's an important distinction, and I want people to understand is you found your niche, and you take control on the front end by being more involved in the analysis than I probably would have. But the reality is on the flips, you do have to do some of that because a lot of times the flippers, they're reading books or taking courses, and sadly, a lot of times I know the guys teaching that stuff too. They're not teaching them the marketing side of things on the real estate side, the owner-occupied market side of things. that's where us agents, you and I and all the people that I teach come into play, because we understand both sides of the business now, you know?
Exactly. I've had several investors come to me that have taken different courses, and what I've taught them from what they've learned in these courses, similar, but it's definitely more. I think what I bring to the table for them as a real estate agent that specializes in this is just, it's almost priceless, to be honest with you, because it's hands-on, it's the real deal, and, you know, going from a 3-bedroom, 1-bath to a 3-bedroom, bath and a half. If I can fit a half a bath in this flip property, I'm putting a half a bath in this flip property for my investors, and that's the reality of it. And being able to educate them on that is very important.
I agree. And most agents, just quite frankly, they don't have the education, the information. So that brings me to the next point is, you talked about when you do the analysis, if you remember, one of the things I give people, agents that I teach, is I actually give them the education on how to invest. They could invest themselves. Once they took the course, they actually could go out and buy their rentals, because I give you calculators, but still might not find the right neighborhoods. But in your situation, I try not to keep coming back to me. I want to talk about you. In your situation, you know, it's interesting, and I'm willing to bet I know the answer here. You understand how to analyze properties because you learn. You learn how there's certain calculators you use, or certain formulas you use, and that coupled with your knowledge of the marketplace down there, that really sets you apart, Brenda, from almost every other agent. Because every other agent, 95% of them only understand the owner-occupied side of the business. You know,
right?
So I want to ask you, how important is it for you to understand and to have learned how to actually analyze these properties to know what's going to make a good flip or a good rental?
Oh my gosh, it's everything. I would not be as successful as I am if I didn't have that knowledge. Yeah. Truly. Mhm. And you know, the cool thing too, Gary, for me is, and real quick too, we'll talk about me now since you're tired of talking about you. Here's a perfect example. Like, I never have to go out and look for clients. I've had so many people contact me on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn, it states specifically on there that I specialize in distressed properties, foreclosures, and short sales. So I literally have had people call me and get listings from that. They've got a distressed house or whatever have you, or I've had investors contact me through that. So it's just an awesome feeling knowing that, you know, I don't really have to work very hard at being successful. Not anymore, I should say, because I did for quite a long time. But it's just, it's awesome to have that peace of mind knowing that you've got, you know, you're always going to have 3 to 4 closing checks or commission checks a month. You don't ever have to stress that anymore.
Right. And you're essentially recession-proof, because let's face it, while investors care about the economy, they don't let the economy dictate when and where they invest. They just change their strategy. So you're always, as an agent who works with investors, you always have cash flow coming in, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. Okay, let me think here. So we got the who, got the what, got the where, got the how. If you don't mind me asking this is kind of like could be a deep personal answer, but your big why, like why are you doing this? And I know you and I talked about this probably a year and a half ago, and I do remember your answer, but I don't want to spoil what you're going to tell people here. But the point I want to make with people is, if you're comfortable telling it, Brenda, what your big why is, I want people to understand how important it is, why it's so important to have a big why, the reason why you're doing this. Because when I ask people what you want to achieve, what your goals are, they all say, you know, I want $1 million, whatever. I'm like, I get it.
Right.
You all want money. But why do you want the money? And then they'll start thinking, well, I want to, you know, I got kids coming up in high school, I need to put them in college, or my mom's getting ready to retire. My father passed away. I want to put her in a nice home, things like that. When you can tie your actions to a deep personal reason, you know, doesn't it keep you more on track and motivated and inspired? So even though stuff happens in life, I mean, your child's going to get sick. Yeah. So would you mind sharing a little bit about that? Because I know for you're a deeply spiritual person, and I admire you so much for what you're doing and how you are personally. And it's when people hear this, Brenda, I guarantee you're going to help. I don't know how many people are going to listen to this, but you're going to help. Even if one person hears this and gets helped by that, don't be surprised if they call you and say, hey, Brenda, I just want to thank you because what you told me allowed me to focus on what I'm doing and keep motivated because it is important to me. You know? So if you don't mind, just spend a minute on that. Okay?
Yeah. Well, obviously, the first thing right off the bat is I love what I do. So, I mean, that's a given. If I didn't enjoy what I'm doing, I wouldn't do it because I wouldn't be good at it. So I absolutely love what I do, and I love helping people. I love helping my investors with, their earnings and helping their families and taking care of their loved ones. I mean, that's gratification right there in itself. Secondarily, I have two adult children, and I have a mom, and I'm a single 44-year-old woman. So my main focus is to basically just be able to take care of my family and my loved ones financially if ever need be. Obviously, I want financial freedom. I'd like to be able to, when I can, and I do, is, give to charities. I think, having gratitude in what we have and then giving it away is very important. If I feel very blessed, like I've said, so for me to just keep that blessing to myself and not pass it along really defeats the whole purpose of, having gratification and helping other people. So that's really important to me. But, I just basically want to be able to take care of people financially, and in this tough economy, it's ridiculous. It's tough. So my mom's widowed. So helping her out as much as I can is important to me and my children, and I travel, and I definitely take good care of myself. That's important, in this being a real estate agent and, working 40 to 60 hours a week, I definitely have to make sure that I take time for myself. Otherwise, you just get burnt out, and you're not doing anybody any favors if you're exhausted all the time and you can't think clearly. So I love to travel, and I may be missing something here or not, but basically I do it because I love it, and I just love to help people. And not only, am I helping myself and my family financially, but these investors, I can't tell you, how much they're grateful and thankful for having me in their life and being able to trust me and know what I'm doing. And so that's important.
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that. And I know when you go home at the end of the day and you see your daughter, for example, and you go to take your mom to dinner one day during the week, I'm almost positive that's when the gratification. Thank God I'm where I am, who I am, what I'm doing, because now I'm able to be with. We don't need to know all your personal details, but what we just told
I
them
do. Yeah, another reason why the freedom that I love what I'm doing too is, and I think I know what you're tapping on, but basically my daughter, who's learning disabled, she had epilepsy and had her left temporal lobe removed when she was 4 years old. She's healthy, she's fine, but she doesn't drive, so it's my responsibility. I take her to and from work, and my goal too is actually by the end of 2016. I'm going to get her own little condo. She's now 24. So I just want to make sure that I can set her up where she's comfortable. She works a part-time job, but as far as her being able to, go off to, get a graduate degree or anything like that, that's not in her plan for this lifetime. So taking care of her is definitely important for me, she doesn't have to worry about stuff like that.
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that because everybody isn't.
I'm losing you again, Gary. Gary? Can you hear me now? Gary? Hello? I'm still hanging on here.